The following is a paid program, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent the opinions of the management of this station or Hamel Broadcasting.
This is 1 in 31, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 31 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I'm speaking with Jennifer McGee, who is the founder of Inclusive Art House. Jennifer, I know you're a little ways away from us here in New York, but I'd like to invite you to start by introducing yourself and telling us about your background, and then we can get into what Inclusive Art House is all about.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be with you today. So I have been a visual artist for about 25 years, most specifically like with painting. I own a company, Body Pizzazz, and we travel and service events all over the country. That's like my main my main source of artistry. And a couple of years ago in 2020, my nephew Isaiah came to live with us, and he has profound autism. And it just really just changed our life, like in every way possible.
I can imagine. How old was Isaiah when he came to live with you?
He was 15 at the time.
15.
He's now 20. Yeah.
Okay. So right at that very interesting age of growing up and sort of transitioning from childhood into adolescence, and now he's a young man. So he comes to live with you at 15, and up until then, were you primarily traveling with your work and doing the paint? Is it? I know on your website, which I'm going to throw out every couple minutes here, the inclusivearthouse.com, when it says meet the team, your picture comes right up, and you've got beautiful face paint on you. So is that the type of artistry that you were mostly focused on? Okay.
Yes.
And you
yes,
still do that?
For sure. Yes, for sure. Yes.
Great.
And that was our lifestyle. We have two boys. They're now grown, and just traveling and just living our best life and enjoying all the things. And so it was amazing, and it still is. We've just pivoted and changed. We still travel. But everything changed in 2020. Isaiah is nonverbal, and he has profound autism. When he came to live with us, he had little to any functional communication and daily living skills. And so everything was a learning for us, and just try to learn how to meet his needs, and also survive as a family. Prior to him coming to live with us, we're the fun aunt and uncle, and we would do little trips, for a few days here and there, and that was always manageable. But when he came to live with us full time, when it was on us, that's when we really needed to learn and understand more about autism.
Yeah, of course. I would think that's a tremendous transition for all of you, for Isaiah as well. I know at Anderson we see, because we serve profoundly affected individuals with autism in our children's program and in our adult program, we do see a lot of folks coming into our program who need support in learning those sort of basic life skills that really are game changers when you break it all down in terms of a quality of life. So toileting, some kind of functional communication, a level of independence, because without those skills, what we see is the access to a lot of other things that are sort of right there, often at people's fingertips, but you need to be able to have a level of independence in a community setting, or at least amongst your family members, in order to be able to open that window for learning more skills. So it sounds to me like when Isaiah came to live with you full time, it was that realization of, okay, we need to maybe back things up and start from a different point. So
Exactly.
How did you do that?
Well, so ABA was pivotal for us. I mean, it taught us how to teach him, and he still receives ABA, and we're still learning all the time. But I'll say there was such a freedom in being the fun aunt and uncle with Isaiah. We had this we weren't scared to take him in public and to take him places, and because we didn't have that fear of what's going to happen of a meltdown, we did try these things. For example, we took him to Disney, and
One of the most overstimulating places in the world, right?
yes,
For a lot of people.
but we were like, we got this.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is great. He does really, really well with Isaiah. It's like Isaiah's favorite person. So we got a wheelchair. So he's happy when he's in his wheelchair. He doesn't have to walk. I mean, he's treated like a king. It was great. Yeah. And we're like, sure, he wants to ride a roller coaster. And so he gets on the roller coaster, has a blast. Like, he's a roller coaster junkie. I would have never, knowing what I know now, I would be too scared to like put him on a roller coaster. I'd be like, oh, he's going to be overwhelmed. He loved it. So I love and appreciate that we had that freedom of putting him in situations for him to try and see what he liked. But I remember at Disney, we went to dinner, and we're in a nice restaurant, and Isaiah picks up a glass and just throws it across the restaurant. And we're mortified. We're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this. So of course, to keep him safe or everyone safe, we left. That was prior to us really having ABA and, okay, how do we get him to communicate? How do we control these behaviors or understand his behaviors, and not control them, but understand what is he trying to say? What is he trying to communicate? So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to make. And I hear this frequently when I talk to both families and professionals in the field of applied behavior analysis, or ABA, which is really the core of it is behavior is communication. What you're trying to teach is what we often call functional communication, which doesn't necessarily mean it's vocal, but something that is actually aligned with what the individual is trying to communicate in a productive or successful outcome-based, method, where that person is going to find a way to communicate what they want, whether they're in pain, whether they're hungry, whether they just don't like the environment, whatever it might
They're
be.
bored, or they want to play. Right.
Exactly. That people around them can respond. Sounds like you learned it in a very, or had that first experience with it in a very sort of natural environment, which you don't hear all the time, but that's so from that point forward, what over the last 5 years, so he came to you when he was 15, he's now 20, are you still traveling? Does he still travel with you? I know that we're going to get to Inclusive Art House, and I want to hear all about that, but I also know that he is listed as the chief of its inspiration on the Inclusive Art House website, which I love. So tell us about how your creation of Inclusive Art House was connected to Isaiah and your experience raising him at this point.
We're on a journey. We're still on a journey. 5 years ago, we got him just before the pandemic, and it really aligned perfectly for us because all of our events were shut down, and we were at home, and we really had time to understand, learn. We were sponges, just absorbing everything we could, seeking all the professional help, and that's when I realized there's not a lot of resources. Fortunately, we have the Marcus Institute in Atlanta that was a great resource for us, and we found some good professionals there. But because of Isaiah's age of 15, a lot of people had already given up on him. There's a lot of people in the industry that believe that if you are not, if you don't have early intervention, that you're pretty much a lost cause. Servicers don't want to provide because, when a 15-year-old has a meltdown, it's much different than a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old. So they're a lot harder to control. So we just ran into many roadblocks. But fortunately, we had an amazing BCBA that came into our home, and Isaiah had 40 hours a week of daily living ABA, and so that was the starting point. But then the next year, when the events came back, we tried to go back to work because we need to work. This is our career. We hired caregivers. My mom came and stayed, and it was a real nightmare. Isaiah had bonded with us, especially my husband Brandon, and unless you you have that relationship and can understand what a person's eyes are saying, or their gestures, it's really difficult, and it takes time to build that. And so the caregivers that we had, I mean, we had TVs that were broken, just a lot of meltdowns, pulling down the curtains, the refrigerator. I mean, just a lot of aggression. So we backed off and took some time from our events and just pivoted in that way. And that's when we started working on Isaiah really being able to travel and being out in the community more. We aren't.
Through you recognizing that the way to do that for you and for him was to leverage the bonding that had occurred during that year when you were home, which I think takes a lot of sort of insight, and I'm sure patience and ability to pivot, which we were all asked to pivot during the pandemic, but this is a different level of really an entire career and lifestyle and that changing. I'm gonna stop us just for a second to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're gonna just go right into what happened when you did that and how the rest of what we're going to talk about has come to be. So this is 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking with Jennifer McGee from Inclusive Art House, and we'll be right back.
I'm Angela Bassett. As a first responder on screen, I know what it means to act fast in an emergency. In real life, the same urgency can save lives, especially when it comes to food allergy. For 33 million Americans, one bite can cause a life-threatening reaction. Now, there's a needle-free option, a new way to carry epinephrine. Know the risk, know the options. Be ready to act. Learn more at foodallergy.org/ready to act.
And now 1 in 31 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs presentation from the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking with Jennifer McGee from Inclusive Art House. Jennifer, thank you again for being with us today.
So I'm really excited to be here.
It's great. I really love and appreciate your how much you're sharing about your background and Isaiah, who is the inspiration for, I'm sure, so much. And I think when we left off at the first part of the show, you were talking about having to kind of regroup, pivot, figure out where to start after being home during the pandemic with Isaiah, where he bonded significantly with you and your husband, and then realizing that he wasn't going to necessarily just transition all those skills to a caregiver he didn't know as well. I'm sure that will resonate with a number of families listening to this. I hear it frequently, and it's not just in families, but it's also in schools and in other programs. You see all this skill development, which has got to be joyful and amazing, and then you see it not occurring in other settings, and that has to be heartbreaking and painful. So how did you channel that? What did you said you sort of came back to square one and regrouped. So how to describe that to us? What did you do?
It was really a full process. First, you're in shock and we're just trying to educate ourselves. And then when we went back to events, and we would try to be gone for a couple weeks at a time, because our events are big, and they require a week, 2 weeks of back and forth travel. So that was not working well. It was not safe for the caregiver or Isaiah. Like we're absolutely terrified that someone is going to, not meaning to, but just try to control or restrain him, and he's going to get injured. So that was really hard. So we took time from the event and just focused on getting Isaiah to where he can go into the community. That is, first we started with the home skills of brushing his teeth and the hygiene, and then we shifted. And again, we were really fortunate to have an amazing BCBA and RBTs that were dedicated to Isaiah and helping him. So we transitioned to the community and, doing doctor, going to the barbershop. Part of his ABA, we were working on, blood pressure, and so to the point where he was able to do 2-minute hearing test. And that was huge. I never thought I would see that day. And so
Those are the
that's,
community resources that really that are about self-care and healthcare, medical care, which also is that next level of independence. And I just want to stop for a second and clarify for any listeners who are not sure what these acronyms mean. A BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst, and an RBT is a registered behavior technician. So those are two professionals who are coming to your home, I assume, and then
yes,
also assisting in the community, supporting Isaiah as you learn
yes.
those skills. Great. Okay.
And going to therapy. I mean, they really helped us, and that was necessary for Isaiah to be able to learn the skills to go into the community.
Yeah.
And so, that gave us more courage and confidence to take him more places. And at first they were like, no, he's not going to be able to fly. I don't feel safe with that. To now Isaiah can fly. Like we fly. We have to be smart about it. We keep the flight short. I don't want to do anything over 3 hours, but we're able to do it, and we can manage.
That's great.
So
That's great. So take us, I'm just aware of the time that we have left, and I want to make sure we give due time to also Inclusive Art House and what you're doing there, because it's art, it's illustration, it's books,
yeah.
it's readings. Like you have, at what point did you create Inclusive Art House, or was that something that existed already at this point?
No, it didn't. Isaiah is completely the inspiration for that. So as we're learning during that time, I'm seeing there's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of art specifically or literature that really represents people with autism, special needs, or even disabled people in general.
Okay.
And so I started the earlier works with Inclusive Art House. It started as a publishing company for a children's book that I wrote about Isaiah. Izzy Can't Talk. And then we started adding art pieces as well. I feel like the book is really important because it's Isaiah's story in his communication. And we use a variety. We use sign language, we use picture cards, a speech pad, gestures. And for Isaiah, he needs all of those things because he is not independent in any one communication model. So for us, of course, we have the speech pad with him as much as possible, but sometimes we don't have the charger.
Right.
Sign language, he knows a few signs. Picture cards are really great. So we use a combination of all of those. And the book, it shows our daily life and how we do that.
I think that's so important. And I really like that you highlighted all the different potential ways for somebody to communicate outside of being vocal. One of the things I learned when I first started here at Anderson Center quite a long time ago was that, sign language is great, but if the other person you're communicating with doesn't know sign language, it's not going to be as functional as it would
Right.
in a community where everybody understands sign and is communicating in that way. Pictures are great. You have to have them with you. Like you said, a tablet or other communication device is often really wonderful, but there's things that come along with that. And if you're traveling a lot and you're packing, we all know that moment where you're on the plane and you realize that you forgot your charger for any reason. And so I love that you're sort of highlighting the real life aspects of why it's important to have different ways to communicate. And you said gestures, and I think that deserves a moment because an additional moment. Gestures are, for a lot of people, a very valid and useful way to communicate. It could be, it's the way we all start basically when we're very young babies, is kind of joint attention and looking at something or pointing at something before we have any words at all. So gestures can be very, very helpful, again, in just any sort of scenario where most people are going to understand what you're pointing at and that you want it.
Yeah.
Right?
For Isaiah, I think that gestures are probably the most communication success that he has. Because he doesn't know formal sign language. He knows a few signs. There's a few pictures that he can get independently, but his gestures, his body language, his facial expressions, those are the way that he communicates and talks to us. So
Well, thank
for
you
sure,
for that.
gestures
Again,
are so important.
just think it's important for other families who might be curious or might be feeling alone or isolated, and that's where their child is at. It's good. It's important to know that you're not alone.
it's really hard to this whole life is really hard, and you have different professionals that are telling you different things, and some are like, okay, you can only use touch chat, and you can't differentiate, and it's got to be just like this, but really it doesn't. It has to be what works and what you can continue to use, and continue to have success with. That's really important.
Good. I'm so glad we touched on that. We only have a couple minutes left, Jennifer, and I'm just curious I want to throw it again. If you're interested in seeing Is You Can't Talk, but also the other books that you've written and the rest of your team and their work and the artwork that's available, check out inclusivearthouse.com. It's a great website, very easy to navigate, and lots of information on there. But I think you had said that you offer speaking opportunities and also come and do readings, right? Book readings at maybe schools and other community locations.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. I do book readings and for libraries and schools, speaking at conferences. I talk a lot about traveling with special needs and with autism. That's something that's really important to me. And the art, we didn't get to touch on that a lot, but the art that I create is it's really powerful pieces that I feel like, because this is coming from a perspective of a disabled person. Our point is we want to be uplifting and empowering, and we want to see this art in public spaces, and for it to be common, for you to see all perspectives in art. So yeah, those are on the website and people can check that out.
I know, it's beautiful. I'm looking at the, there's dragons, but there's also this beautiful Inclusion is Enchanted piece. There's really something for every style, I think. And the fact that it's all made by, do you make them all, or do you have a team of people who are doing this?
I have a team. Like, there's no way, actually. I have a team.
Yeah,
I
everybody
create
needs a good team.
Yes, and they're all amazing, and everyone is really passionate about the community that we're trying to uplift and serve. Everything is hand drawn and hand done. Everything is human created. So I create some of it, and we all really put our ideas and input into the work that we do. We have a new book coming out
Yes.
October 20th. Yes,
Okay.
Izzy Can't Talk, but he can make friends. So the first book, Izzy Can't Talk, is about communication and the different ways we communicate. Izzy Can Make Friends is about the social part and how difficult it is for Isaiah to meet new people and just that process that he goes through. So we're really excited about the book.
I love that, because I think that's also a big misnomer out there, the idea that socialization, and especially for kids, making friends with somebody requires, vocal language or something else, or even eye contact. If you spend time on a playground, little kids and even, teenagers, I have a couple teenagers that might, in my house, it's about sort of a connection. And if you feel a connection, I think one of the best ways we can make an impact right now in the world is reminding young people that the likelihood that they're going to have fun with somebody else their own age, just playing tag or just sitting next to somebody, is a really positive thing. It's kindness, it's inclusive. It's usually pretty easy, simple. So I'm thrilled that that's your new book. I would encourage anybody listening, whether you're a member of a parent group, a PTA, a school, maybe a library system or a community center, if you're interested in having somebody come and read these books, Jennifer's a great resource for you. Again, go to inclusivearthouse.com and you can find ways to get in touch directly with Jennifer and her team through the website. And Jennifer, it's been a real pleasure meeting you and hearing about your story and Isaiah's story and your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
This is 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky. And remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 31, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.